Diet has been in the news a lot recently as we've been encouraged to cut drastically back on meat and embrace a plant-based diet. Maybe some of you even tried Veganuary, a vegan January. But beyond the month's challenge, why go vegan? This is Kirly-Sue's Kitchen.
Welcome to the studio to Kirly-Sue.
Hello.
So, what do you do, Kirly-Sue?
I'm a vegan cook, a vegan food writer, presenter, and author.
Food.
You share one of our common passions, good food.
Yes.
And we know that we can find your work on Instagram and YouTube as well.
Yeah, at Kirly-Sue's Kitchen. Kirly spelled Kirly, Kirly-Sue's Kitchen. Yep.
Okay, so if you're inspired by what she's going to share with us today, go and check out her amazing stuff. You will enjoy it.
And today we're going to be delving a little bit into the world of veganism. I have to say, I have to be honest and put this out there. I'm not a vegan.
I'm a wannabe vegan.
Okay.
I've tried and I've struggled.
Well, I'm not a judgmental or angry vegan or a vegan who seeks to convert the world. For me, I'm more of a happy vegan who I'll present you with the facts and then the choice is yours, because I believe everybody has a choice and your choice won't offend me because I'm not eating it. So I don't mind.
Well, the truth is, I do believe that it is the healthier choice. I do believe it is. It's just the route to get there.
Yes.
It's quite a challenging one.
It can be. Nowadays, it's easier than in days gone by. I've been a vegan for 5 years.
Okay.
And I've noticed even in the past 2 years, it's got easier and easier in this country. Anyway, there's some countries I go to, I starve. But most vegans in this country is quite reasonably easy to, but making the transition, it's about relearning how to shop and cook, really, or adapting what you already do.
Is that a little bit as to the why or what you would like to achieve, or is this a bigger picture?
What I would like to achieve in terms of veganism?
Yeah. In terms of your passion and what you do?
In terms of my passion and what I do, I want people to have easy options, because sometimes the recipes can be a little bit complicated, and they have ingredients and you think not even Amazon has this. So, they have everything. Or you have to hunt down the ingredients, or they're not something you'd easily find, or it's not something you'd know how to actually cook. Or you look at the dish and you think, well, when it's done, should it look like this? So for me, it's making it much easier, more accessible to more people, and helping people to understand that it's actually easier than you think and cheaper than you think as well.
Cheaper?
Yes. Well, if you buy a pound of beef, say a decent pound of beef, and then you buy some vegetables, there's a big difference in price. So, or if you buy a pack of lentils or chickpeas or so forth, the price of those kinds of things compared to meat and fish, there's a big difference.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to going on this journey towards veganism with you. Why go vegan? That's where we want to start.
There's a number of reasons why people go vegan. Different people go vegan for different reasons. So I'll highlight some of those. A lot of people, it's because of animals, and they love animals, and they don't believe that if you're an animal lover, you can also eat them.
I'm more inclined to go down this route personally.
Okay.
Because I'm a lover of animals, and this is something that's always been at war in my mind.
Right.
As someone who does delve in a bit of meat every now and again.
Right. So there's a lot of people who it's animals. Some people it's health, healthy eating, particularly in a lot of countries. The meat can carry a lot of diseases and so forth as well. Some people it's for the environment, because the statistic is it takes 2,500 litres of water to produce 1 pound of beef.
Wow.
So just to give you that stat, in terms of the environment, rearing cattle for food, or rearing cattle in general, takes a lot more out of the environment than it does to grow plants.
And I guess that is very removed from our minds because it's just packaged, put on a shelf. We go and conveniently swipe a card.
We don't think about what went into producing it at all, really.
Right.
Yeah.
We just turn up and take.
I think it's thinking a little bit beyond that, because obviously if you live in not obviously, but a lot of the times if you live in a Western country, I mean, some kids nowadays, if you say, where does milk come from? They'll say Tesco. So, poor things. They don't realise it comes from a cow. They're like, oh, does it?
But it's so
there was
true.
a particular pastor and he took his kids out of the country for a while because he said, when I asked my son, and that's where I got the experience from. He said, I asked my son, where does milk come from? And my son looked at me and said, Daddy, it comes from Tesco. And he thought, no. I need to sort this out. So he took them out of the country.
This is a cow.
Yeah. The milk comes from here. And the child was like, really?
Shock.
Yeah. So it's being more aware of what's going on. Kind of slightly off topic, but it's like those group of young people who were taken out to a country to show where clothes were produced, and they were shocked.
Right.
Yeah. So it's thinking, where does everything come from?
Right.
How did it get here? Yeah.
So these are some of the things that people think and the basic assumptions as to why they make decisions. Let's talk a little bit more about the legitimacy of some of these reasons. Let's talk a bit more about health.
Health. I run a seminar every now and again called How to Become a Vegan. And part of the seminar, because it's kind of interactive, I go around to everybody, well, as many people as I can, and say, what has brought you here today? And what I've found, having run lots of these seminars, is a lot of people have come for quite sad reasons. There was one that stood out to me, and always will, was a brother and sister who came and said, a lot of people in our family have died of cancer, and our dad just passed away. And we just think it's some kind of hereditary thing, and we want to break that cycle. So that's why we're here. We want to learn to eat differently. So the health benefits are basically it's night and day, but it has to be a whole food, plant-based diet, because there's a lot of people who think because it's vegan, that makes it healthy.
Right.
And no, if you get a potato, cut it into chip shapes and fry it in vegetable oil, that's vegan, but it's not healthy.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah. So you have to think of whole food, plant-based, because there's a lot of vegan junk food, and some of it is actually quite delicious. Not that I'm encouraging people, but you have to think, is it healthy?
Right.
Because there's I mean, most, not all, but most sugar is vegan. I say that because some of the ways in which sugar is made is not vegan at all, but most sugar is vegan. And if you think the numerous amount of things that sugar is in, that's vegan, that's not going to be healthy. So it has to be whole food, plant-based.
I feel like consumerism has developed our palate to really gravitate towards the non-healthy stuff. And I feel like that has created a huge screen in front of asking that question, what is healthy?
It has, definitely, but it's about training yourself to move beyond that. Looking at, it is difficult to make that transition, because if you've been brought up on hot dogs and hamburgers and your parents, instead of cooking, they'll go to the little £2 chicken shop on the corner. And I've met people like that. It's quite hard for them, and they'll have chocolate milk for breakfast and, really disturbing stories like that.
I had a friend who would eat a slice of white bread with sugar on it for breakfast. Because that's how he grew up. That's what his parents would feed them. Yeah.
That's similar to some people have, condensed milk.
Yes.
They'll have that on bread.
Some people have donuts for breakfast.
Okay.
We'll pray for them. Anyway, but it's about starting small and making that transition bit by bit, because most things in nature are gradual. So to make a change on your body quite abruptly is quite difficult, because all you'll do is sit there thinking, oh, where's my donut?
Yes.
So you have to do it bit by bit. Maybe find a way to make baked donuts.
Right.
I've got a recipe for you if you like. Yeah. Just find a way to start phasing in the stuff that tastes nice and phasing out the stuff that's not so good. For example, I did a vegan collab video on my channel with an American lady, Mama Cherry, and she made peach cobbler. So nice. But I learned how to make it with less sugar. In fact, it was less sugar. I did a blueberry and peach one and I brought it in. I did the other show. I did a blueberry and peach cobbler, but I used spelt flour. I didn't put much sugar in it. I put a teeny bit of sugar in it. I just made it. I used applesauce. Obviously, I didn't use eggs to bind it and stuff like that. So it's about making healthy, tasty versions of it. And that's what I try to help people to do. Help them to make the transition, make it healthy and make it tasty and make it part of what you would usually eat. So if you like Norwegian food, start trying to make some Norwegian vegan food. There are some cultures where I don't know how they're going to make anything vegan because they just eat meat and more meat. I'd just say have a bit less of the meat. Just cut it down bit by bit and just add a bit more vegetables and stuff like that. Just phase it out very, very slowly.
So what are some of the health benefits of being a vegan?
The health benefits of being a vegan is, first and foremost, if you're on a whole food plant-based diet, you will reduce the amount of saturated fats that you have. You can have more fiber in your diet. You'll get more magnesium, potassium, folate. Because you're having more whole food plant-based, this is if you're doing the healthy vegan thing, you're having more fruits, more vegetables. It's just giving your body much more of what it needs, much healthier. Because I'm not saying I'm the healthiest person in the world, because that would be lying. But I do try. So for breakfast, I try to have a green smoothie. Now I've found a lot of them but my absolute favorite that I've found is the apple mint smoothie. Okay. So it's apple juice that I make myself in the juicer, and then I use that with like half a cup of that with a handful of spinach and 3 or 4 sprigs of fresh mint, and you whiz that in the blender, and that's your green smoothie, and it tastes so nice. And I tried it out on some junk food eaters, and they went, "Oh, this is really nice."
Do you do fruit smoothies as well?
Yes.
Okay, now here's something to a little bit of contention here, because I know other individuals are totally against fruit smoothies. Okay. Because they believe or they feel that you're not supposed to have that amount of sugar all conjured up into one smoothie. Okay,
I've heard this argument before. The difference with that kind of sugar is it reacts differently on the body, because this is natural sugar that has fiber in it as well. It's quite different to drinking a can of Coke with maybe the same amount of sugar, in inverted commas, but the reaction of it on the body is completely different. Because when they're doing the studies about reducing sugar, the NHS and different health professionals like that, they're not bothered about how much fruit we have. They said, when you're having fruit, yes, they said you can eat as much fruit as you like. We're not bothered by that. That's not a problem. But when you're having the processed sugar, that's the problem.
I see. In terms of the health, it's always quite challenging for me, because I don't know if this is a thing, but maybe that I just do or other people do. But when I get sick, that is when I go out to buy oranges.
Okay. Well, okay.
That is when I go out and I stock up on all the vegetables, and I reduce my diet. I am vegan when I'm sick. Okay. Because I guess my body is crying out for just to get rid of all the mess and just to focus on what is right and healthy. Is there a downside to just overloading yourself with healthy stuff?
You can overdo anything, because I've come across people who are very, very healthy, but you have to draw the line somewhere, because some people say, "Oh, I only have organic food and I only have this and I only have that." I think you have to be realistic in what you can find. I say it's about doing the best you can with the resources that are available to you, and, seeking to grow and improve in what you're doing. So you can overdo it, because some people will say, "I'm only having healthy food," and they're not enjoying it and they're miserable. So it's about making the food palatable for you. I don't mean by, pouring, melted butter over it or, frying everything to make it. It can be healthy and flavorsome at the same time. Because if you think of your favorite fruit, a lot of people like mangoes, a lot of people like pineapple, a lot of people like, I love grapes. I like all kinds of grapes. I even know the names of the different varieties now, only because it's written on the packet in Marks and Spencer's. But
I'm such a man. They're just grapes to me.
No, there's different ones.
Yeah, no, there's seedless grapes and seeded grapes.
My absolute favourite, you can't get them in this country, are Concord grapes. Yeah, you can only get them in the US that I know of, but anyway. So it's about making it tasty but healthy at the same time, which some people think, well, if you have, for example, plantain and you don't fry it, it doesn't taste good. And I was brought up on plantain, and I was convinced if you don't fry it, then you just don't know how to cook it. Until I...
For clarification, plantain is that
it looks like a big, long banana
from
thing.
the Caribbean, from the West Indies.
It's Caribbean, India, and Africa it comes from. Right. So when I left home, I decided I wanted to have plantain because it's one of my favorite things to eat, but I wanted to make it healthy. So I went to a vegan cooking class because I always like to learn. And I don't tell them what I do. They say, oh, what's your experience of veganism? I say, oh, I'm just here to learn. I don't say anything because I don't want to.
Liar.
But I don't want them to feel like on the spot. Yeah. I mean, one person in the class did know who I was, and she said it at the end.
Oh, great.
But thankfully she said it, because I don't want the person to feel a bit funny. So what she said is, you take the plantain, slice it up, soak it in water for 10 minutes, spray it with spray oil, and then put it in the oven, and then you've reduced the calories and the saturated fat by 100, well, not 100%, by a long shot.
Wow, I'm going to try that because I'm a big fan of plantain as well.
Cool.
So yes, it's good to know.
You can also do it in the dehydrator. I bought a dehydrator. I was inspired by a friend of mine called Sibel.
I'm like, what's a dehydrator?
A big round thing that you put food in and it takes the moisture out of it. But yeah, because you can make pancakes in there and so forth. So my friend Sibel, I saw she had one, so I was inspired to get one. And then I had to go on to YouTube to find out, how do you use this? What do you put in it? And another friend of mine, Leah, has a raw food cookbook, and she uses a dehydrator quite a lot. So I've learned from that how to use it. It kind of sounds a bit weird, and you put it in there and you think, well, this isn't cooking, but it actually it is. Yeah.
Are there any other health benefits you would like to highlight before we move on?
I think when you decide to change the way you eat, it kind of opens up your mind to looking at what you eat in general. So you may think, well, I'm going to be vegan, but I'm only going to have vegan crisps. But then you're starting to look at crisps in general, and then you may decide, well, that one's got too much salt, that one's got too much fat, blah, blah. So it's a gateway to helping people to think more about what they're eating. So it's about doing the best that you can with what you have, basically.
Let's move on to talk a little bit about the environment. Talk to us a little bit about some of the environmental benefits of becoming a vegan.
There are many. There's a film called Cowspiracy, and
that's a fantastic name.
Yeah,
I've seen it. It's
really?
a great movie.
Yeah, you watch it and you think, all right,
time for change.
Yeah, I won't go into all the details, but
I have an imagination.
It's not one of those gory ones per se. No, because there are some vegan films that borderline Stephen King. But but I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean in terms of it's quite gory. They're quite graphic in what they show you. But with regards to the environment, I think you can watch Cowspiracy and can get some facts and figures from there. You can Google and get the different facts. For example, the one I just said about how much water it takes for a pound of beef compared to growing plants. The main thing is, for me, culturally growing up, I was never really conscious of environmental. I thought that's something that other people talk about, and they're just a bit hairy-fairy and fluffy. Hey, we need to do this for the environment. And it's only since I've been a vegan for a while and I've been surrounded in the vegan community by people who talk about it, it made me think about it more. And I thought, well, as a practicing Christian myself, I should be concerned about our environment as well. So it's thinking about what we have and how it impacts the world we live in, because also the fact that a lot of people demand meat has an impact on the fact that there are people in the world who don't have enough to eat, which to me, I don't actually understand why in this day and age there is anyone anywhere in the world who should struggle for food. For me, that's ridiculous. It's wrong, because I think food and healthcare, for me personally, should be a right, not a privilege. So if we're helping with the environment and we're not demanding so much from the planet, it makes it easier. And it's about being less greedy about what we do, because the quote from Gandhi is, there's enough resources in this world for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. So it's about looking at what's best for our planet. And okay, we can't all change the world in, one sitting, but it's about doing the best that you can as an individual, because it only takes one person to start a movement. So it's about looking at, your choices, because even simple things, it's not necessarily vegan per se, but looking at when you go to the shop, do you get plastic bags? Do you throw them away? It's just doing your part for the environment and thinking of, I'm an Adventist, so I think of healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit. So I think of not just myself, but those around me and how it impacts people around me. So I was looking at this poster about, when you throw stuff away, how long it takes to decay and it goes into the sea. And they found a crisp packet this year in the sea, and it was produced in 1967.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it looked intact. Wasn't faded, nothing.
My goodness.
So it's thinking about our environment and the impact that meat has on our environment. There's another film called Got the Truth About Milk. That one is quite eye-opening as well. There's another one called Vegucated. That one, there's sections of it that are a bit gory.
Right.
But in general, it kind of gets the point across. And these are quite interesting films to watch. Yeah, definitely.
I have to be honest and say that for me personally, I've grown an interest in this simply because of where I now live. So I live on a boat. I live on the canal. And so living in nature, I have seen how people mess up the canal left, right and center. Like, I know this is a man-made thing. I get it. It's the canal. But in and of itself, it's surrounded completely by nature. It was designed in order to try and fit that. And just watching people just throw all kinds of rubbish into the canal on a daily basis has really arrested my attention on that. And it's really something I feel, I get a genuine feeling. I don't know if that's both of you, but I feel that millennials are really kind of steering towards trying to be more conscious about their decisions.
Right. I feel like that's more on trend, and that's something I wanted to ask you about as well, because there is more of a trend towards veganism these days. It's
a huge trend. There's just over 500,000 vegans in the UK, but there are... don't think they know the exact figure. There's probably 4 or 5 times that amount of people who are flexitarians. So they're not vegan.
We have a
Lynette's putting her hand up. There's many people as a flexitarian. Just to explain, a flexitarian is somebody who is not a vegan, but they have an interest and will have, if there's a nice vegan option, they won't mind trying it. So 2 flexitarians. Okay. Yeah, so there is that trend. Also, there's many celebrities who have gone vegan. The most recent one is James Corbyn. Has gone vegan. So some people who've tried veganism, which has helped raise it. Tia Mowry, one of the Tia and Tamara
I follow her.
sisters.
Yeah, she does some pretty amazing stuff as well.
She was vegan for a while and she did some campaigns for PETA, the animal organization. And there's also Beyonce has done stuff, Alicia Silverstone, all these different people, because they are big in the public eye. They've used their platform to help those of us who are vegan, because basically it's just come on in leaps and bounds. There's so many. I just think great. Even if some vegans are a bit annoyed that the celebrities have tried it and then haven't stuck to it, I'd just say, look, if you want to just try it out and introduce a new sausage or something, that's great. More for me.
And it might inspire someone else who will actually stick with it.
Absolutely. So it encourages restaurants and so forth to have more options. Loads of restaurants are now having options. I do admire the restaurants that have more than one option. Because that's the thing that annoys me, because when people say, we have a vegan option.
Option.
Singular.
Option.
So I said to them, okay, help me to understand. If I'm not a vegan, I have a choice of meat, fish, chicken, fish, blah, blah, blah. I said, just to let you know, not all vegans like the same thing. And they're like,
And this is why we need to educate people on how to be vegan, how to cook vegan food.
But I have to say, speaking from the meatitarian side, all right, okay, I will say to you that we are so used to a variety of different tastes, and we're not used to the idea that there are a variety of taste within veganism. It's ignorance. It's something
Very
that,
much so.
It is, okay, and you're scowling me right now.
I'm not scowling. I'm bursting to say something. No, I'm not scowling.
But that's the tension that I feel exists.
I think there's an image and a reality of everything. So, for example, people may think that if it's vegan food, it may all taste the same. But if you go to an Indian restaurant and they do some wonderful vegan dishes, they're not going to say it tastes the same as if you go to Mildred's, which is another wonderful vegan restaurant, which is more English food. And if you go to an Italian vegan, that straight away, that's 3 different kinds of foods. So it's kind of a image I'm not sure where it comes from, but there's lots of myths around veganism, because the kind of old school way of thinking of veganism is tofu eating, crystal powered, Birkenstock wearing people with strange views of the world. That's the kind of, the hippie, so to speak, kind of person. But nowadays they come from all walks of life, because if you go to Veg Fest, which is one of the big vegan festivals, I walk around and I look, and I was trying to kind of say, what's the typical vegan, having a PR background. And when I look, I'm thinking there isn't. It's just very random. It's just everyone from everywhere.
Yeah.
So the trend is on the rise. It's gone up 150% in the past 5 years in the UK.
In your opinion, why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I'm really happy. I don't really know. I think celebrities have shone a light on it, definitely. The meat scares we've had in the UK, because when they had what was the last one we had? The horse meat scare.
Yes.
My social media, my website just went crazy. I had lots of people commenting and contacting me saying, right, I need to get off the beef burgers. I can't
And you know
do
what?
this.
Within the first 2 weeks of that coming out, I think most of us did become vegetarian. But then after about 3-4 weeks, it's like the subconscious just, I don't know, it went into the back of the mind, and we all just went out and bought meat again. And it was just weird how that happened. But there is something that needs to be retaught into society about the benefits and how we need to just refocus how we think about the decisions that we make.
And kind of dispelling the myths as well, because people have preconceived ideas, which fair enough, if you have them, you have them, but it's being a bit more open-minded, because a lot of the time when you say this is a vegan meal, people's reaction is, ugh.
Exactly. No taste.
Yeah. But then for me, if you have a vegan meal and it's got no taste, then the person cooking it just needs to have a different approach to cooking, I would say. It's probably a polite way to say it.
Finally, just to wrap things up, you have some advice to give us from a very nice old lady.
Okay. Ellen G. White was a wise author. She's written many books. One of them she wrote was called Counsels on Diet and Food. Even though she doesn't advocate that you have to be a vegan, she does uphold vegetarianism and veganism. And what she says is, as time moves on, the meat will become diseased. Now, she wrote this in the 1800s.
Really?
Yes. So she was definitely way ahead of her time. So the meat will become diseased. And we can't say that's not true, because it's become diseased time and time, particularly in the UK, time and time again. And she said diseases will creep into the food chain via meat. So it's about phasing that out, having more fresh fruit and vegetables. And she advocates, looking at what you're eating and trying to be much more healthy, because she says if you have a lot of food that's not healthy, it makes it more difficult for you to think straight. Now, that can sound a bit weird, but if you've ever been in hospital or been seriously ill, unfortunately, that's happened to me. And I got to the point where I found it difficult to pray. So obviously, if you're praying, you have to think about what you're praying about. And I found it difficult, and I thought, what's going on here? So I spoke to the elder from my church, and the response from the elder was, oh, it's just because you're ill. Don't worry about it. It's just because you're ill. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize how your body, the health of your body has such an effect on your mind.
They're so closely connected. It's unreal.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people knows that. And this is a bit kind of ties in with what Ellen G. White is saying, that we need to have a healthier approach because it affects our thinking, our spirituality, our lives in general. It makes a massive difference. She also advocates fasting for periods of time. And I'm not saying that everybody can fast, and there's different types of fasts that you can do. You can fast from, watching too much TV. You can fast by just having water. You can have just fruit. You can fast, for part of the day. So there's lots of different ones, but it's about being more in control of your body and being more in tune with your choices in terms of healthy eating.
So if you're inspired, we can find your work on Instagram and YouTube as well.
Yeah, at Kirly-Sue's Kitchen. Kirly spelled Kirly, Kirly-Sue's Kitchen.
Thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Join us next time on Kirly-Sue's Kitchen for practical suggestions for meal planning as a vegan.